It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Those words with which Charles Dickens begins his novel, The Tale of Two Cities, sum up the experience of the last 10 weeks for us at St Martin's. It's been the worst of times because our business has been unable to operate, jeopardising dozens of jobs and slicing off the revenue that keeps our community going. Meanwhile, those who have no place to lay their head have been vulnerable like never before. But we've also discovered the depth of countless friendships, many of which we never realised we had. An amazing range of people have donated generously to our Keeping Our Doors Open appeal. We've never felt our presence and mission more appreciated than we do today. Our doors have been closed for the first time, but our communities responded with innovation, energy and compassion online and face-to-face, expressing something more infectious than the virus. If you've already given to our appeal, thank you, sincerely, from me and from the whole community. If you've been part of our life and haven't yet had the chance to give, may I invite you to do so, right now. If you're new to St Martin's, sit back and enjoy this event. What you'll see is the way St Martin's seeks to embody hope, dignity, creativity and relationship in everything it does. We're constantly responding to new challenges, and the coronavirus is the biggest challenge we've ever faced. But we're made up of people like you who believe in the joy of music, the quest for truth, the value of every individual, and the power of the word together. Thank you for keeping this dream alive in our darkest hour. I invite you to enjoy this concert in the company of our compere, Zeb Soanes.
My spirits are all day, my joy, nothing my tongue could say, only my joy. My heart and echo good, my joy and spake, tell I thy thought, hide not thy joy.
Thanks, Sam, and the wonderful St Martin's Voices for opening this evening of music, conversation and poetry with friends who have so generously offered to give their time to support this emergency appeal for London's greatest parish church. Now, if you are new to the work of St Martin's, you couldn't have picked a better night to find out what we do here and how you can be part of its future.
Last year, St Martin-in-the-Fields held over 400 music events. Over 85,000 people enjoyed a concert with us, and 42,000 shared a lunchtime performance free of charge. But on the 17th of March, our church fell silent. Our singers and musicians stopped performing, and we lost our income. But with our digital recordings, the voices of our singers and musicians can still be heard around the world. Over 10 million people have listened to our music since lockdown began, and we want to be ready to welcome you back to Trafalgar Square. Please make a gift to help us to continue to share the gift of music and to be able to open our doors again for live performances as soon as we can. To give, go to the St Martin's website.
We're delighted to begin our concert this evening with a performance by Warren Mailley-Smith. Warren is one of the greatest concert pianists of his generation, and he was the last musician to perform live at St Martin's before the doors closed on March the 17th. Here he is playing Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue.
Hi, my name's Warren Mailley-Smith. I'm a concert pianist from London, and I'm thrilled to be playing for you Gershwin's epic Rhapsody in Blue. It's always been one of my favourite pieces, and of course there are two versions of this piece. There's the version for orchestra and piano, and there's also this wonderful version arranged by Gershwin himself for solo piano, but it comes with 3 times as many notes for the pianist, because Gershwin very cleverly somehow maintains that he keeps the vast majority of the notes that the pianist plays with the orchestra, but he also throws in all of the orchestral notes as well. And I think the biggest challenge for the pianist in this version that I'm going to play for you, aside from the notes themselves, is trying to keep some of the textures and the colours of the orchestra. So there's this constant balance between bringing out the solo piano part and also keeping alive the brilliant orchestral colouring in Gershwin's original. Probably the thing that sets the Rhapsody in Blue apart from almost any other piece I can think of is the incredible way that Gershwin fuses together the genres of classical and jazz. And I think that's one of the reasons for this piece's enduring popularity. I hope you enjoy this performance.
Warren Mailley-Smith. What a fantastic way to remind us of the central part that music has at St Martin-in-the-Fields. St Martin's has a reputation the world over for its music. Last year there were over 400 concerts, most of them free to attend, and I think you'll agree that the joy of music has never been more needed than right now. St Martin's doors are open to all during lockdown. They have resolutely stayed open to all, albeit virtually. Over the past 2 months, the voices and sounds of St Martin's have been heard the world over. Thanks to social media, podcasts and broadcasts, up to 10 million people have heard the music of St Martin's shared through the fine young voices who train at St Martin's throughout the year, training which continues even in lockdown. So if you can make a gift tonight, your donation will help continue the development of those talented young musicians. Now let me introduce you to one of my BBC colleagues and a very dear friend, Julian Worricker. Julian is also a great supporter of St Martin-in-the-Fields, and over the past few days he's been chatting to some of our other supporters. His first conversation is with the comedian Hugh Dennis.
Well, with me now is the comedy writer and performer Hugh Dennis, a familiar voice to Radio 4 listeners from The Now Show, of course. Hugh, welcome. Good to see you.
And you. And your living room. One of the many delights of lockdown.
Yeah, one of the wings of the home. How's lockdown been? What have you been up to?
Well, like everyone else, I've been. I've found aspects of it quite relaxing, actually, because there's so much to worry about. There's no point in worrying about any of it, almost. And I have been trying to write very unsuccessfully. I've done a lot of mending things that don't need mending. I've done a lot of mowing. I've felt tremendous sense of frustration, moments of great happiness, moments of despair. The same as everyone, really, I think.
Is there something that you're most proud to have mended during this period?
Well, no, I mean, there are lots of long-term projects. The thing that had needed doing for a long time was a new bolt on the lavatory door, which I think you will agree is fairly essential. Yeah. And I have now fixed that.
Excellent. A round of applause for that, at the very least. Writing, yes, obviously, you've been attempting, you say. And the process of writing and being, I suspect, frustrated by the fact that you can't go and perform, you can't see an audience, you can't do a lot of what you do. How do you deal with that during a period like this?
Well, it's quite difficult. I mean, they're sort of separate things, really. Writing is very difficult because I think a lot of people are finding, actually, that they can't even, finish reading a book at the moment. It's becoming incredibly difficult to sort of finish stuff. And that's also true of writing. But in writing, you have the added difficulty of not quite knowing the world you are writing for. Right? So Steve Punt and I are at the moment writing a thing which is based on a train. Now, that would seem very easy, wouldn't it? But is it now? Do they have a third the number of passengers? Do trains run anymore? You don't know. So it sort of informs everything, doesn't it? It's very difficult. Performing, yeah, I really miss having, dare I say, I miss having an audience, and the idea of doing live work again is a great one. But who knows when we'll get back to that?
And that, I mean, because you're writing, a lot of it is based on what's going on in the world and is satirical and is going to pick up on some of the maybe absurdities of some elements. This, as you say, you don't know when that's next going to be seen or heard by a wider audience. So it's difficult to be current when current might be different in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, but that might be the funny thing, mightn't it? You'll end up writing a show about how difficult it is to write anything. There's always stuff to write about. It is just without deadlines. This is what I've realised, actually, is that without the kind of pressure of having to do it week by week or, get it done by the end of the day, it's very difficult. And I know an enormous number of people are working normally from home and all the rest of it. That doesn't really happen in my profession. you know, and the danger is that every day becomes like every other day. You know, and the excitement of it's the weekend sort of rather disappears, doesn't it? It's a Thursday night and we're clapping for the NHS. That's fun, you know, that's one of the few markers, isn't it?
Keep something in the diary at least, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And some of the inventive approaches that people have used, you know, the streaming of theatrical shows, the kind of stuff that appears online that would normally be in front of an audience. I mean, does that appeal, or is there something about it that is not quite getting to what you'd like?
Well, it's not quite the same, is it, really? I mean, the idea of being in a live audience and performing to a live audience, it's happened like that over centuries because that is the perfect way of doing stuff. And I was, you know, what happens about theatre and what happens about stand-up and all the rest of it, how you get audiences together is really perplexing. And I wondered actually yesterday if there was a means of, you sort of reverse the process. So you get the actors on the stage, actually physically on the stage, and then the audience on a screen. It's like the opposite of going to watch a film. And somehow you kind of create a virtual audience from people like us watching in their own homes. But you need an audience for the back and forth, don't you?
Yeah. We're talking obviously in the context of a St Martin's online concert, online because of all the issues we've been talking about. And I know you've, over the years, via the BBC Radio 4 Christmas Appeal, done a lot to help the work that St Martin's charity does. Why has that mattered to you as much as it has over these recent times?
Because I think that that homelessness is a dreadful thing, really, and it's one of the things about lockdown is that weirdly now we have sort of half solved it in the sense that places are being provided, and you know there is because they are a vulnerable group. That is my front door with some form of parcel. That's the other thing that happens in London. Did you hear the front door bell there?
Yes, it does.
No. I don't know if anybody's going to answer it. I think the dog may be trying to answer it. That's. I am hoping you have the facility to edit this slightly.
We do.
Sure. That's very good. That's very good news. But you know, during the lockdown, people have recognised that homeless people are very vulnerable. That it's very easy to, it is very easy to spiral into homelessness without it, in any sense, being your fault. It only takes a tiny thing for it to happen, and then the whole of your life has changed. And we need to provide support for those people. I mean, it's sad in the way that it's taken a kind of a global pandemic for everyone to realise that, but that's been going on for years, and it shouldn't be.
But there has been more talk, hasn't there, about kindness and how maybe there's a little bit more of that being exhibited just now, and maybe that gives you a cause for hope.
Yeah, it does. I mean, on the street that I live in, everybody is out making sure. Well, no one is out. Let me make that very clear. But everybody is looking out for their neighbours, and you know there are sort of vulnerable people in the street, and everybody's looking after them, and that gives me a great deal of hope, actually. But I think my support for St Martin's was really based on various things. You know, I come from my dad was a vicar and a bishop, and you know my whole youth was based. People were always coming into the vicarage kitchen as the gentlemen of the road, as they were referred to in the early 1960s, and so this idea of kind of looking after a wider society, I think, is pretty ingrained in me, and I find it very upsetting actually when I see people sleeping on the street, and and St Martin's does an amazing job, and the fact that it was, it's called St Martin-in-the-Fields, but in fact they're not fields there now, are they? It's a very unforgiving urban environment right in the middle of town. full of people sleeping in shop doorways, and under bridges, and and it's so easily solved, I think.
Well, listen, it's great talking to you. Thank you, Hugh. I hope the delivery is as you wished.
I imagine 90% of the time I'm just returning them.
Well, listen, most importantly, stay well, and thank you very much.
Yeah, and you. Lovely to talk to you.
Thanks, Julian and Hugh. Now let's have some more music. And we welcome a performer who last performed at St Martin's in 2019 as part of her very busy calendar, touring all over the world. An astonishing talent, the soprano, Katharine Dain.
Hi, my name is Katharine Dain. I'm a soprano. I was meant to be performing at St Martin's this month. I was going to come to do Mozart's absolutely wonderful, joyous Exultate Jubilate with my friend Andrew Iris conducting. Hugely disappointed not to be there. In the meantime, while we wait to be able to gather and do live music in person together again, I'm happy to be able to offer you 3 songs that I recorded last weekend with the pianist Sam Armstrong in Amsterdam. The first is by Debussy and is called Rêve, and it's a nostalgic look back at an idealized past. The second 2 are by Poulenc. The first, Violon, is almost a cabaret song and is an evocation of someone enjoying live music, so very appropriate for our current hopes for being able to gather. And the second, Fleurs, is a sweet, bittersweet look back at a past love. I hope you enjoy them, and I look forward to being able to be back in the beautiful space in St. Martin's with the warm and lovely, friendly atmosphere of the evening concerts, and to sing for you again in person.
Thank you, Katharine. Well, our next piece of music is from another talented group of young musicians, the Amanzi Quartet. In 1958, Jack Shepherd, then the director of music, invited a young Neville Marriner to form a chamber orchestra. That orchestra went on to become the world-famous Academy of St Martin-in-the-Fields. Well, in the same spirit, St Martin's hosts a competition each year to celebrate the work of music ensembles at the beginning of their careers. In 2018, the Amanzi Quartet won that competition. Here they are now to tell us why they impressed the judges so much that day and what it's meant for them.
We're here today to share some music with you in partnership with St Martin-in-the-Fields. We took part in the 2018 Chamber Competition and were awarded the Audience Prize.
Ever since the competition, we've had the chance to perform at the Lunchtime Concert Series. These concerts are a wonderful opportunity for young ensembles and soloists to perform at one of the most prestigious venues in central London. And they're free, so anyone is welcome to come and listen.
Not being able to work as a group or do any live performance has been difficult for us and for all musicians around the world. However, it's been amazing to see how creative musicians have been in finding new methods to share their music with others. For example, through doing live streamed concerts from home and long distance video collaborations.
The music we are playing in this video is the last movement of Fauré C minor piano quartet. We recorded it in last May from our lunchtime concert in St Martin-in-the-Fields, and we really enjoyed the performance. Although there is a hint of sadness with its tonality of C minor, it still contains a positive tone with its strong, resistant turbulence. We really hope you can enjoy it.
Thank you to the Amanzi Quartet. St Martin's is widely known as a place of sanctuary, support and refuge. It remains a working church with a thriving congregation and a broad programme of public ministry. Choral music is at the heart of that ministry. And each week, St Martin's choral scholars have been recording hymns, individually, at home, which have then been cleverly stitched together and shared throughout the whole of the Church of England. On the first Sunday alone, 1,200 churches shared the music of St Martin's choral scholars. Well, now our Choral Conducting Fellow, Gabriella Noble, chats to Julian about what she's been doing to help that work throughout lockdown.
Well, with me now is Gabriella Noble, who's Conducting Fellow at St Martin's. Welcome, Gabriella. Good to see you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Are you well during lockdown?
I am very well. I'm very lucky that I have somewhere nice to be and I'm enjoying the sun. I know it's not so easy for everyone, but I'm keeping well, yes.
Tell me about the role of Conducting Fellow. What does that actually involve?
So usually it involves a fair amount of conducting, of course, in person, which is not really something you can do electronically, but we're finding ways to make use of all of the musicians we have at St Martin's in this time. Normally I'm in at St Martin's perhaps twice a week, and also at St Stephen Walbrook, which is a partner church in the city. And what I do is on a Monday I might conduct an evensong with the choral scholars, and also take part in their rehearsal, which is on a Monday lunchtime, and we all have lunch together, which we're all really missing. And on a Thursday, we have St Stephen Walbrook, an event, a mass in the morning, and we also sometimes do, I forgot, a choral classics concert at St Stephen Walbrook on a Monday. So it's kind of a packed schedule. So concert on Monday, service on Monday, and then another service on Thursday. And then on Thursday evenings, I work with the St Martin's Chorus, which is the amateur chorus, but it's a very high standard, and we do big concerts in St Martin's with orchestras and things.
I mean, a lot of that, or nearly all of it, in fact, it's group music making, isn't it? It's the pleasure of being in the same room with fellow musicians and making a lovely sound, and not being able to do that must be immensely frustrating.
It is, you know, and I sadly don't live with musicians at the moment, which I'm not to, but it's, so I really miss that in-person flow you get into when you're breathing together and you're just in it together. And we hope we can get back to it soon, because that's why we do what we do, but we're finding ways to make do.
Well, let's look at the ways you're making do. So how are you trying to get around that as best you can with the music?
So, well, with the choral scholars, we wanted to maintain some semblance of a routine, because I think that's part of the beauty of it, is that it's the same group every week making music together. So we still meet on a Monday, sadly without the St Martin's crumble, and we decide what sort of electronic music making we're going to do that week. But one thing that's come up has been this collaboration with the Church of England. So St Martin's and the Church of England are putting together this resource for all churches across the country to use, where every week we produce 5 pieces of music that churches are able to use in their online services free of charge, with no sort of licensing difficulties. And I think that's been a problem for churches as they were going online, getting music that they can play that people can sing along to at home. So we produce 5 pieces of music, most of the time 4 hymns and 1 anthem. And so that's one of the things that we do every week. And that happens through my recording a video of me singing and conducting these pieces. There is some conducting going on there. And that's sent out to the choral scholars, who then watch that with their headphones in and record an individual track. And then that's sent back to me or to Andrew, and we stitch it together and make it sound like it's in a building made of stone. And Bob's your uncle. Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, that's incredibly inventive. And obviously the association with St Martin's for you, and not just the music and the ministry, but everything else that goes on, and the association with the charity that is looking after the homeless and vulnerably housed. How much does that all play a significant part for you in your association with St Martin's?
Well, I think for me, you know, a lot of the young musicians who work at St Martin's, it's one of the things that they do. And the reason I treasure it so much personally is that when we work at St Martin's, be that at a funeral, at a service, in conjunction with the charity, to raise money for the homeless, or whatever we're doing, you're actually being of service to other people in a way that you're not when you're doing a concert. It's slightly different. You are providing music for people to use sort of emotionally and spiritually. And I think that that's reflected in the working environment at St Martin's. It's such an amazing community. I really miss supportive, and you feel like it's for a greater purpose, the music you're making, and it isn't just because it's fun, while it is fun. And we've seen that in this initiative with this recorded music, that it's being picked up by thousands of churches every week are using it. And there are lots of vulnerable people now who can't leave, and this is sort of their only access to practice their faith. And so I think it's really important. And we're also keeping up our community strands of the music making. So the community choir, which meets on a Sunday, we've done some online stuff with them as well. So I've recorded another guide track for them to do a mass that Bednall wrote especially for that community choir. And that's just anyone can be in it. It's a come all, come everyone choir. And with the chorus as well, we've tried to maintain that sense of community. So we're putting together a track with them, and we all just met on Zoom just to chat and say hello. You know, like I think a lot of community groups are doing the same thing, just to keep something going. But yeah, I admire what St Martin's does greatly. And actually, this period of time has made me committed to actually engaging more with the charity arm of the organisation, rather than just the sort of musical side, which is where I normally live.
Well, listen, keep up the good work. As you say, let's hope it's not too long before you can make your music actually together in the same room, because that would be a huge tonic for you and everybody else, I'm sure. But in the meantime, great talking to you, Gabriella. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julian. Yeah, it was lovely to talk to you.
Now, I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by two of the choral scholars at St Martin's, Ailsa Campbell and George Cook. Welcome to both of you. Good to see you.
Hello.
Okay.
How has lockdown been for you both? I mean, Ailsa, how do you carry on being a choral scholar when you can't all get together to sing?
Well, yeah, it was a bit scary to begin with because we weren't really sure what was going to happen. But luckily, we've kind of brought choral music into the 21st century, and we've been doing virtual recordings from our own homes. We've been doing this by getting tracks that we sing along with, and we just simply record ourselves singing along and then send it off, and someone sticks it all together, and then we get hymns still.
And George, that works for you, and it must have felt odd initially.
Yeah, it's a very weird feeling because obviously you're used to standing next to your peers, and choral singing is a wonderful thing in that it's very instinctive, very reactive and you have to use your ears. But the only thing you're really listening to when you're recording yourself is of course yourself, and no one really likes listening to themselves. But yeah, it's something that we've quickly had to adapt to, and once you get in the rhythm of it, we're kind of churning out 5-6 different recordings a week now, and it's good fun. I think it's lovely to hear the end product each week. We have a meeting each week, and we hear the end product of it all being edited, and that's always really fulfilling.
I was going to say that must be an interesting moment, because you're suddenly hearing the finished article when you could only hear obviously your own element of it. Have you both been impressed by the finished article by and large? I suppose you have to say yes to that, don't you?
Definitely, though. I think it does sound like we've recorded it all together, which is pretty amazing considering the circumstances. So yeah, that's really good.
George, what was your route to being a choral scholar at St Martin?
Well, I've always loved singing. Music's always been a very important part of my life. But I was at school in Suffolk, in Woodbridge, where I am at the minute. And then I went to uni, I went to Durham, and I sang, I was a choral scholar there in the cathedral. And that's kind of really what got my choral singing going. I had a great training there. And then I was been teaching for 2 years, and whilst keeping my singing going, my freelance singing going. And then I just moved to London in September, which is which is where I then auditioned for St Martin's a few months before that, September in the summer. And I've been a choral scholar since September 2019. So it's great, and it's a wonderful place. And I feel very lucky to be a part of the sort of family, is what we all really call it. It's a wonderful place, and it's fantastic.
And also for you as well, that significance of being at St Martin's as part of what you do, how much does that matter to you?
Yeah, it was, well, when we were doing it full time, obviously, before all of this stuff happened, we were there for about 2 days a week, and it really felt like it was a big part of your week. And we saw everyone, all the other choral scholars, so much that it was, you really felt rooted there, which was really nice.
And for you both, I mean, obviously there's an important element of St Martin's work, which includes its work to help the homeless and the vulnerably housed. How much does that touch you both as choral scholars there?
Yes, I think it's a wonderful, there's a wonderful sense of community there, because we reach out to all aspects of the community in London. I think London, for me, when I moved in September, was quite a scary place, because you're out on your ear, you know, and everyone is sort of fending for themselves. And so you get a real sense for joining together, and that's something that St Martin's offers in loads. But it's lovely to have knowledge of the fact that our singing is hopefully helping the wider communities and bringing other people that wouldn't normally be brought together through.
Yeah, that sense of family, Elsa, is important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just the fact that we're also, every time we go to St Martin's, it's right in the centre of London, and you really feel like you're in the midst of everything, and you kind of understand all the issues in London around there. And and it's just great to have an open mind whenever you're there. And as I think St Martin's it's always an open door for everyone, and to make sure that us as a family, we're very open as well to match that, which is good.
Well, listen, as part of this concert, I know we're going to hear you both performing, not just you both, but as part of a larger group. Tell us what we're going to hear.
So we're going to hear a piece by Bob Chilcott called En la Macaronita, which we're struggling to say.
You said that would be a challenge, didn't you?
Yeah. And it's an arrangement by Bob Chilcott, and I first heard the piece from the Tenebrae Consort album, which is absolutely incredible. Would recommend listening to that album, and I've always wanted to sing it. And we were doing lots of hymns so far over the course of this time, and Andrews then said, let's open it up to a bit more close harmony, a bit more a cappella-y, different styles, and this one just popped out for me. I was like, we should definitely do this one. So
great. Well, listen, thank you both so much for sparing a few moments, and let's all enjoy, and I'm going to try and say it now, En la Macaronita by Bob Chilcott.
La Macarena, buena capa, buen sombrero, buena mano, pantorero, buena capa, buen sombrero, buena mano, pantorero. La 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 la. La Macarena, buena capa, buen sombrero, buena mano, pantorero, buena capa, buen sombrero, buena mano, pantorero. La 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 la. La Macarenita. la Macarena, bueno capa, el sombrero, buena mano, pantarero, bueno capa, buen sombrero, buena mano, pantarero, bueno capa, buen sombrero, buena mano, pantarero, bueno capa, buen sombrero, buena mano, pantarero,
That was the St Martin's Choral Scholars performing On La Macaronita, a traditional Andalusian work arranged by Bob Chilcott, a graduate of the Choral Scholarship Programme. Partnerships are very important to us at St Martin's, and over the past years we've enjoyed working with the Soul Sanctuary Choir, who performed at many events at the church. Now Julian talks to Miko and Mel Giedroyc about their work with the choir's director, Clarence Hunte.
Well, with me now are brother and sister, Miko and Mel Giedroyc, and Clarence Hunte. Welcome, all of you. Very good to see you. The connection here is the Soul Sanctuary Gospel Choir, who we're going to hear from in a few minutes' time. Miko, as one of its co-founders, give us a flavour of the choir and the sort of music you perform.
Well, the choir was founded in 2005 on the premise that contemporary gospel is, and I'm going to annoy some of our fellow performers here, but our belief is that it's the greatest Christian art form currently being performed. And the other thing is that it's you could say it's the only remaining artistic bridge between the church, and the world at large. What I'm saying is that it's. I think I'm right in saying it's the only Christian art form that is unquestioningly accepted by everybody at all times. And we do a lot of weddings and events and stuff, and everybody loves gospel music. So that was the basis on which it was founded, and we love performing everywhere, but we do quite a lot in church, and we were started off as a church choir in one church, and we still have two home churches in the West End, Farm Street and St James's Piccadilly, and we work at St Martin's a lot as well, which we love. So that the purpose was to bring this incredible, you can say unique music, not only into other Christian denominations where it really isn't known at all, at least live. Everybody's heard it recorded, but not many people have heard it live in church, which is where it really comes alive. And also to the world at large. That was our thinking.
And Clarence, you were pretty soon part of this, weren't you? Within a few months, I think.
That's correct. It started in September of 2005, and I joined in October, so coming up to 15 years.
Wow.
So you gave it a few weeks to settle, and then you thought, yeah, I'll be a part of it.
And stuck ever since.
And Mel, how do you fit into the picture?
I would love to sing in an illustrious choir like Soul Sanctuary. Sadly, the old vocals are not quite up to scratch.
Yeah, she wouldn't pass the audition.
I wouldn't pass the audition. Also, the idea of having to see my brother once a week that's too much. No, I'm joking. But
you know what, Mel? You would pass the audition, actually.
I really doubt.
Yes, you've got a singing career to look forward to.
There's a difference between holding a tune and enjoying singing and singing for a choir like Soul Sanctuary. I mean, these are all, to a man/woman, unbelievable singers. You are, Clarence.
Thank you very much.
Own it.
I'm sure the choir will appreciate that as well.
No, but it's the truth. They all do solos. They all sing incredible harmonies. They're all incredibly musical. Sorry, that's just the dog. She's having a sing-song of her own.
That's quite all right. We don't mind that.
Sorry about that.
It's a rather strange time that we're living through at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. But no, I've been a massive fan of the choir for forever, ever since they started. And I've been very honoured to be part of, actually at St Martin's, which was a real joy, with the spoken word element. It was Christmas Meeks, wasn't it? It was 2 years ago, Christmas. I think it was that lovely snowy time, and I came and did some of the readings, which was really good fun. it's always just a joy to be in their company and to hear them singing, frankly. So I try and scrape in whenever I can.
And Clarence, you're smiling as Mel describes her admiration for what you and others do. And clearly a huge part of it is that sense of being together as a group and watching the reaction of those who are sitting, listening and enjoying it, which of course is something you can't do at the moment.
Yes.
I'm wondering how that feels.
Well, it's a bit odd. We're unable to rehearse together online, but like everyone during this time, we've had to adapt. We've had to find new ways of doing things. So we've started doing these virtual recordings, and it's something that we've never done before, but it's worked very well, and hopefully we might go use it in the future. So we've gained skills during this time that we didn't know we had.
And Miko, how's that worked from your point of view?
Well, you might be able to tell from the kind of rustic beam and whatever. I'm not actually in the UK at the moment. I got caught in France, so
He's in prison. We can say that we're in a safe space. He's in prison, Julian. It's very unfortunate.
A rustic jail.
A rustic Bavarian prison.
Yes. No. So I've done a little bit of admin. But our band leader, Peter Yard-Martin. So on the recording that you're playing, that is being played this evening at the online concert, Peter did the lion's share. The band leader, Peter Yard-Martin, did the lion's share of the work. And the guys, so Peter prepared the backing tracks. They went out to the guys, and then the guys sang at home. But it's not just a question of just lifting up your phone and singing and then sending it back. It's actually a good several hours of hard work for each singer, and then Peter did the production and everything. So this was very, very much Peter. I've got off very, very lightly. The previous one, Clarence and Chris, worked quite hard.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, Julian. How do you, presumably at home, you all have different types of microphone, Clarence and stuff. How does that work? If somebody's got a really good quality one, somebody doesn't have such a good quality one, how does that work?
Well, it's all through the mixing. Pete did an amazing job putting it all together, trying to match the quality of the vocals and quality of the recordings. So yeah, it all depends on what people have at home. We have to use what we have at the moment because we have no other options. So Pete did an amazing job putting it all together.
But do you know what Pete said? He said when everyone had, we were absolutely, this was the one thing that I was in charge of, was getting everybody to submit by a particular deadline. Pete got all the submissions, so I think there were 25 or 26 singers, and he just crammed them into his Logic and then pressed play. And he said it was fantastic, just immediately. It just
Really?
Great.
What a moment that must have been when he first heard that with everybody.
Yeah. Usually when you do that, it's a little bit disappointing, and then you have to go in and fiddle this and stuff. But he said it just literally. I think it's partly. Wouldn't you agree, Claz? It's the strength of the composition. The original composition, the Israel Houghton song, is so good.
Okay.
Definitely. And it's also. I think it's also because we've sung together for so long. We know exactly how to deliver a song or how to perform, how to come off on endings. It's just working together all these years. I think that also helps.
Mel, I wanted to ask you, and this was a tip-off from your brother yesterday, there's been something called the Isolation Song Contest.
Oh, yes, in fact.
During lockdown?
Yeah, that's right. It was brilliant. A lovely musician/comedian called Tom Taylor. It was his brainwave. And he asked 14 of his mates, various comedians, musicians, drag artists, to come up. I think we had a week or 10 days. We had to come up with an original Eurovision song. We were each allotted a different country, and we had to make a video as well and do it all within a week at home. So only using costumery that you had at home, using people that you had at home. But luckily, I have this amazing brother, Miko, who composed the tune. We got Italy, we were allotted Italy. So I wrote some lyrics, I sent them over to Miko in prison. He came up with the most amazing song. And then my husband did the video on his phone. I got my daughters involved. A neighbour actually threw over a wig from one side of the garden because I needed a big Italian style wig. So everyone pitched in. It was so much fun. And Pete Yard-Martin, your illustrious choir leader, he's not the leader, is he? Is he the
band leader? The
band leader mixed it in his bedroom at home. So I recorded the song very much like you've done with the choir, Clarence. And Pete worked his magic. Thank God for Pete. Honestly, the man is
indeed
absolute genius.
And was it?
Julian, you just have Pete here, basically.
Yes, right. Did you win, Mel? Is that right or not?
Well, I don't want to blow my own trumpet.
No, I was inviting you to do that.
Miko's trumpet, but we did actually win, which, God, that felt good. It was amazing. I've never won anything in my life. It felt absolutely brilliant. Did you feel that, Meeks?
On your behalf.
Oh, he's so modest. He's too modest.
The Italians will be delighted as well, I'm sure.
They can't make head or tail of it, Julian. We've sent it to a few Italian friends, colleagues, they literally don't know what they're looking at or listening to. It's just slightly, but anyway, we had great fun. It was really good.
Yeah. Clarence, tell us a bit about the piece of music that we're going to hear from Soul Sanctuary in this concert.
Well, it's the story of Pentecost, and to put it simply, it's sung scripture. So the lyrics are taken from the Bible in Acts 2, and our soloists improvise and speak the words of the scripture, and it's put against a popular gospel song called Rise Within Us by Israel Houghton. So we've adapted the lyrics and put it together with the music from the original to create this piece about Pentecost.
A piece, Miko, that I think you're very pleased with. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think it sounds. I mean, as I say, Pete put all the submissions in, pressed the button, and it already sounded fantastic. Yeah, so no, we are really, really pleased. I mean, it's a fantastic composition.
Beautiful.
The soloists really,
Beautiful,
really nailed it. It's beautiful.
I love the way, Julian, that they managed to work in the spoken word stuff as well. It's so seamless. It's so beautifully done. And again, full props to all of you guys and to Pete for kind of melding the spoken stuff and the sung stuff remotely. It works absolutely beautifully, I think. Gorgeous.
Well, listen, having talked it up to the extent we have, it's probably a good moment for us to actually enjoy it. But before we do that, just a word of thanks from me to the three of you. So Miko, Mel, Clarence, thank you all very much indeed for that.
Such a pleasure.
Thanks for having us, Julian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julian. And now let's hear from the Soul Sanctuary Choir.
Rise within us, Holy Spirit. Rise with healing, healing in your wings. Rise within us, Holy Spirit. We're ready, ready, we're ready for you. Rise within us, Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit. We're ready. We're ready. We're ready. We're ready for you.
There came from heaven a violent wind and tongues of fire, which rested on the heads of the apostles. Filled with the Holy Spirit, they began to speak in different languages. Rise within us, Holy Spirit. We're ready, we're ready, we're ready for you. Rise with power, Holy Spirit. We're waiting, we're waiting, we're devout men in Jerusalem from every nation, and each was amazed to hear his own language. Others scoffed, saying, "They have been drinking too much wine." Rise with healing, Holy Spirit, we're calling on you.
These men are not drunk, cried Peter. Remember the prophet. I shall pour out my spirit on all humanity, who will prophesy, see visions, dream dreams. Show your glory, Holy Spirit. We're longing for you. Show your glory, Holy Spirit. We're longing for you. You saw the miracles of God work through Jesus, yet you had him crucified, but God raised him to life. You can be certain that this Jesus is Lord and Christ.
Filled with remorse, they asked, "What are we to do, brothers?"
Repent, Peter answered, and be baptized, and you too will be given the Holy Spirit. Rise with healing, Holy Spirit. We're calling on you. This promise is for all of us, all whom the Lord is calling. Ooh, we're ready. We're ready.
And everyone was filled with awe. The apostles worked many signs and miracles, and all who shared the faith owned everything in common. They sold their possessions and shared everything among themselves. Each day they went to the temple, but met at home to break bread and praise God.
And day by day, the Lord added to their number those who were being saved.
For many people, the idea that we are all only 2 paychecks away from homelessness has never felt a greater threat. This emergency appeal is also supporting the work of the charity at St Martin-in-the-Fields, which is helping people whose tenancies feel vulnerable or who are already facing homelessness. Together with the Frontline Network, we're offering a rapid response to help those people, some of whom are facing these problems for the first time. You can be part of that rapid response team by giving whatever you can tonight whilst enjoying these last pieces of music.
For hundreds of years, St Martin-in-the-Fields has sought to unite beauty, truth and goodness in the heart of London. During 2 world wars, our doors were open to those facing their darkest hour. But on the 17th of March, our doors had to close. So we moved online. 10 weeks later, 2,000 people begin their day with us with morning prayer. Tens of thousands watch our Sunday morning service, live or later. People searching for hope, healing and help have found their way to us from all around the UK and the world. And we want to be ready too. Please make a gift to help us to continue our work, so we can walk with people as they find faith, hope and love, and welcome you back in person when we can open our doors again. To give, go to the St Martin's website.
The work of the charity is highlighted each December when they run the BBC Radio 4 Christmas Appeal. Throughout December, they raise money for the charity and The Connection, which is the on-site day centre at St Martin-in-the-Fields. Throughout December, some special guests answer calls from donors, and for some years, the comedian, writer and presenter Arthur Smith has been one of them.
Well, with me now is Arthur Smith, writer, comedy performer, familiar voice on Radio 4. Arthur, welcome. Good to see you.
Julian, nice to see you too, although obviously no handshakes or any of that.
None of that. How has lockdown been for you? What have you been up to?
Well, I've got very tired of the word unprecedented, which has been heard an unprecedented number of times. I'm pretty good because I live here in Balham in South London with my partner. It's a reasonable sized house. We've got a tiny little garden and 3 commons nearby that I can walk round. And I've done a little bit of work from home on voiceover stuff, but as a stand-up comedian, which is essentially what I do, everything's gone. So all the gigs I had coming up, and saddest of all, the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, which I've played pretty much every year for over 40 years. And so, August is where I am when I'm in Edinburgh, and I won't be. And that's, and I miss just being somewhere other than within 2 miles of my house and getting on a bus or a train. Do you remember going on trains? Do you remember them?
Yeah, vaguely. You're right.
Looking at the sea. I want to see the sea again.
Yeah, it's the ordinary sort of day-to-day things that you can't do anymore that trouble you.
Yes, although there are other aspects of it that. It's funny how the people who live nearby me here, a lot of whom I pass in the street quite often, now somehow there's a friendlier atmosphere, and which is agreeable, and it's nice when people help other people, and at least at the beginning when the sky was so clear, never seen such a great view of Venus from the back garden and the moon. And because I'd love to see all the twinkling lights of the stars, but you never do in London, really.
No.
I remember once when I was in New Mexico and I was out in a kind of desert and I just lay there at night and looked up and I couldn't believe all the stars that you see, which you just never ever see in London or in most cities, I suppose.
Is lockdown a good period for writing if you're sort of sitting there wanting to create something?
I would say,
flow or not?
For some people, the answer to that is yes. But for a lot of people, the answer is no. And unfortunately, I'm a bit in the latter camp. I was meant to be writing a show for Edinburgh, which I will do, I hope, at some point, about Paris and about the time I spent there. And my plan was I'm going to teach the audience French and blah, blah, blah. But because I'm not going to the Edinburgh Festival, one needs a deadline. And in a sense, there are no deadlines at the moment, are there? And I think there's quite a lot of writers who found it hard to sort of knuckle down. But there are some annoying ones who can do it every day for 5 hours, and they go cycling and they Zoom every one of their friends. And I'm a bit more, there have been some days when I have done really nothing, I have to say. But then nothing itself, there's some joy in doing nothing. And I think nothing is a bit underrated. Doing nothing, fair enough. If you've got nothing to do that's of any great import, then do nothing and turn it into a religion, perhaps.
We should embrace nothing. I think there's something in that. Tell me about your involvement with St Martin's and the work that goes on in terms of helping those who are homeless and vulnerably housed. I know it's something that you've actively supported in recent times. Why is that something that's important to you?
Well, I have a great sympathy. I once spent an afternoon some years ago sitting next to a homeless guy. In fact, there were two of them, but just to sort of spend the afternoon with them and see what it was like. So, because everyone who passed obviously presumed I was homeless too, I suppose, because I was sort of sat there and I noticed that people hardly ever looked at them. That you could see a kind of disdain. Virtually no one gave them any money. And I thought, yeah, well, that's perhaps what this life is like. You're kind of separated and looked down upon. And so I was pleased to get involved a bit with St Martin's-in-the-Fields and what they do. I took part in a gala event just before Christmas. Now you won't approve of this probably, Julian, but I have a kind of charity of my own at the back of my head, which is called Fags for Homeless People, because I'm appalled to admit that I smoke, because apparently it's bad for you. But I have noticed quite a lot of other homeless people smoke, and I like to give them cigarettes. And honestly, they're often so pleased. I mean, clearly no regular charity would ever do this, or and they would condemn it. But honestly, I was in Glasgow and I went mad. I gave a whole packet of cigarettes to these two homeless guys. And you've never seen two happier men in your life, I have to say.
No,
I feel a kind of, I don't know, I do feel a kind of empathy, because I've always been a bit of a wanderer and a dreamer. And there's a book that's just come out, which I was interested in, about some of the great tramps, as they were called then. You know, this is people who, in a way, they're not the same as most homeless people. They kind of choose to be just out in the street, never quite knowing me and the next money's coming from, or how you're going to eat, or where you're going to spend the night. But oddly, there's a kind of, I find a kind of beauty in that in a way as well, especially as, who knows, we might all end up like that in the end.
Yeah,
that's a jolly thought.
That's a jolly thought. I know we're going to hear from you in a moment, reading two poems that you've chosen. Tell us about the choices you've made here.
Well, one is a poem by Philip Larkin called "The Mower," which is about the importance of being kind and remembering other people. You'll see it's all about a hedgehog and whatnot, but I've always found it a very beautiful and rather inspiring poem. I'll tell you, the last line is, "We should be careful of each other, we should be kind while there is still time." And funny enough, I do poems quite often when if I'm doing a lengthy stand-up set, I will often stop off along the way and recite some poems, because I know quite a lot by heart anyway. And it's funny how often that seems to fit in well, oddly. I mean, obviously they're not getting laughs, these poems, they're not meant to, but they go in oddly because I suppose they're stories in words, just like comedy is really, unless you're a mime artist or something. The other poem I'm doing is sort of about my mother, who lives just a mile up the road from me now, and in a nursing home, and she has dementia, so that she hardly knows who I am now, but you know, I'm almost jealous of her, because she doesn't know what this pandemic, you know, they're all right up there. There haven't been any cases of it, although sadly I can't go and visit her, which is partly what the poem's about. But she exists in a way, in a benign world of ignorance, where there's some rhythm in her head, and she's, you know, once the dementia, when she first got it, she was appalled and she could feel it coming and she'd always dreaded it. But now it's gone so far, she doesn't really know she's got it. I was watching the news with her recently up at her home, and she said, "Oh, what a terrible world we live in." I said, "What a terrible world we live in." And she said, "Yes, I would hate it. And I kind of feel some empathy with it. I feel a bit, I wish I didn't know who Boris Johnson was, or Dominic Cummings, or Trump, or Brexit, or obviously pandemics and global warming. It's very easy to spend your whole life fretting about the world.
Yeah. Well, listen, we will enjoy watching and listening to those poems in a moment. Arthur, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for doing that.
Julian, I salute you, and to all the people you're helping, and good luck to you.
A Scattering by Christopher Reid. I expect you've seen the footage. Elephants finding the bones of one of their own kind, dropped by the wayside, picked clean by scavengers and the sun, then untidily left there, decide to do something about it. But what exactly? They can't, of course, reassemble the old elephant magnificence. They can't even make a tidier heap. But they can hook up bones with their trunks and chuck them this way and that way. So they do. And their scattering has an air of deliberate ritual, ancient and necessary. Their great size, too, makes them the very embodiment of grief, while the play of their trunks lends sprezzatura. Elephants, puzzling out the anagram of their own anatomy, elephants at their abstract lamentations, may their spirit guide me as I place my own sad thoughts in new, hopeful arrangements. May the 8th, 2020, by me, Arthur Smith. Oh, Mother, I cannot see you today, though I know you are bathed in the tender warmth of those who care for you. And I know, too, that as your head rocks gently among hidden rhythms, that there she still is, the grammar school girl from Camberwell Green, laughing among friends in the whirling blossoms of relief and hope, dancing, kissing sailors in Trafalgar Square. It is VE Day, and the rest of the century is yours.
Some more poetry now. Harry Baker became the youngest Poetry World Slam champion in 2012. His first collection, published in 2014, was called The Sunshine Kid, and he's now working on his second collection. As well as regularly giving workshops and performances, he has fun touring around the country as part of Harry and Chris.
Hello, my name is Harry Baker. I'm a poet. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. I'd love to share a couple of my poems with you. This first one is called Impossible, and it goes like this. I'm finding it too easy to tell myself it's too hard, when facing the end that it's too late to even make a start. But if we take impossible to mean that we don't have a chance, we have lost sight of how unlikely it was we would get this far. The way a single fish outwits the shark by sticking with its school. The way the crescent moon outspins its dark to once again be full. Even winter, given long enough, begins to lose its cool. What was once exceptional now barely registers at all. Flamingos and giraffes look like they were drawn by a child. We can't begin to comprehend all of the ways this world is wild. None of them asked if they were possible before they came to be. None of them have ceased to exist by being told they're make-believe. The bug who finds it all too much and tries to shut off everything, to then recover and have summoned up the strength to stretch its wings. The snake so full of itself that it cannot help but shed its skin, or how, instead of death, the hedgehog went to bed and slept till spring. To think the earth exists at this specific distance from the sun, down to the angle of the axis on which everything is spun. The fact that trees happen to breathe that which we need inside our lungs, it would all seem impossible, had it not already been done. We are impossible to everyone who's ever gone before, and everyone who's yet to come will push impossible some more. Just as indeed the do's we did outdo the don'ts we didn't. So everything's impossible until it isn't. The thought of rivers changing course before a line's drawn in the sand, or that a tide might turn from shore before somebody gave a damn. We cannot know how far our actions go, the impact they might have. Sometimes the only thing that we can do is to do all we can. Just as the night is at its darkest when it's introduced to day. Just as the dry is at its harshest in the breath before it rains. It's easy enough to believe in something when it's all okay, but it's when times are at their hardest that it's hardest to have faith. Yet when the light begins to fade, That's when we need it the most. It's by surviving day to day that we see seasons evolve. If there was never any doubt, there'd be no reason to hope. It could be too late to do anything. As sure as hell is if we don't. Because I am tired of the doom and gloom and self-fulfilling prophecies. I am trying to find room to bloom and self-fulfill the opposites. When it's an act of revolution to try stay remotely positive. There's nothing wishy-washy about opting to be optimists. Whether a brighter future is possible, we may not truly know. But the first step towards that future is imagining it so. And so, as indeed the do's we did outdo the don'ts we didn't. So it remains impossible. Until it isn't. And when it's over, and we're no more than old bones within the ground, still the soil knows to grow its seeds from what is broken down. What is lost is always lost, until the moment it is found. And it only ever goes one way, unless we turn things round. We are so constantly surrounded that it's easy to forget. This world was built upon impossible that has not stopped us yet. So yes, indeed, the do's we did outdo the don'ts we didn't. It only stays impossible until it isn't. Thank you very much. There is a phrase in that poem, "when this is over," which is one I've seen spoken and typed a lot at the moment. I think a lot of people are looking past what we're currently going through. And for me, one of the things I'm looking forward to the most is just being able to hug people that I love. And so this poem is about that. It's called "When This Is Over." Thank you so much for having me. When this is over, I will hold you closer than you've ever known. When you see me, you can squeeze me till you feel my very bones. How I long to let you know that I won't want to let you go. There will be so much left to say, yet still some things are better shown. I will wrap my arms around you for the seconds we have lost. Our words will find a way to wait as we locate the weight of us. Though we are changed, there stays a sense of same about the way we touch. Though it is strange, we will embrace how long it takes us to adjust. The word of everything we knew is one that we cannot return. The word of everything that's new is one we'll build from what we've learned. The ashes cannot be reborn until we've seen them burn, and the next time I'm stood in front of you will feel like it's been earned. Because when the start is given way, it's only then the end can enter. When the heart is given space, it will forever tend to tender. These affections kept at bay can once again descend to something we'll have come to yearn as hummingbirds connect to nectar. For all the overwhelming moments where I felt like giving up, there is no point where I have worried we've forgotten how to love. And when the future's all we've got, well then that's got to be enough. All that I know is when I'm low that I have wanted to be hugged. And if you'd rather have a handshake, that is absolutely fine. Even a wave from me is saying I am glad that you're alive, whichever form it takes. When this has passed and we've started again, I will no longer take for granted any chances to connect.
Well, as well as work around the country, St Martin supports vulnerable people in and around the church itself each day. Over 1,000 people who are experiencing homelessness come to the Connection at St Martin's each week. Or with the doors closed, we're helping them find temporary accommodation in hotels and elsewhere, supporting over 120 people throughout Westminster and Wandsworth. Supplying 3 meals a day, medication, but also picking up the phone to check in and make sure that they're okay. Please donate now to make sure that this important pastoral work can continue. Well, let's have more music now from rising star and friend of St Martin's, Millie Turner.
Thank you so much, Zeb. I'm Millie Turner and I'm going to sing you guys a few songs. The first song I'm going to sing to you is called Swimming Pool. And this is one that I wrote a while ago when I was 16. Imagine you're floating in a pool.
Skies reaching far, we arch our backs so you can see them go further. I speak to you in faded words, muffled by the water, muffled by the water. Don't turn your head, you'll lose your balance.
And when you do, I'll have to save you. Swimming pools clip the silence that lies on us as we wait for the waves on this autumn afternoon. Our breathing makes sirens as the water washes over our healing bones. At least the water's still running, 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 and we can keep on swimming, swimming, swimming. And though the world's on fire, I know that we can stay safe and cool. Floating in our swimming pool, floating and floating. I can see perfectly from here. You break the water in agreement, your hands purring the water with the movement of your body. Don't turn your head, you'll lose your balance. And when you do, I'll have to save you again and again. Don't turn your head, you'll lose your balance. And when you do, I'll have to save you. At least the water's still running, 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 and we can keep on swimming, swimming, swimming. And though the world's on fire, I know that we can stay safe and cool. Floating in our swimming pool. You can be my lifeguard, saving lives 24/7. I can be your lifeguard. You can be my lifeguard, saving lives 24/7. I can be your lifeguard. You can be my lifeguard, saving lives 24/7. I can be your lifeguard. You can be my lifeguard, saving lives. At least the water's still running, 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 and we can keep on swimming, swimming, swimming. And though the world's on fire, I know that we can stay safe and cool. Floating in a swimming pool, I could be your lifeguard. Floating and floating, floating. You can be my lifeguard. 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 You can be my saving lives. You can be my Thank you so much. Virtual clap, virtual clap. Woo. Thank you, that was Swimming Pool. The next song I'm gonna sing is one that I wrote. I was really bored in a museum with my grandparents. And this is like, I was 16 then, I think. Yeah, I would have been 16. I was so out of my mind, bored. I was like, ugh. And then I decided to, I think, like in times when you don't know what to do, you end up doing stuff. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And I ended up writing this poem, and this poem ended up being this song, and this was one of my first releases, which is crazy. Yeah, so it starts off, I'm going to start it off with the poem because I think it's kind of where the roots of the song come from. Okay. Rapture me in arms that stand alone. Take your hands and press them to my face, for my face is the only part that feels, and your hands are the only part that can see. My arms and legs have just taken off out the door. Bang. There goes my arms, tied together with knotted elbows and crossed fingers. My organs form a line and march off carefully, unwinding their grasp, unclenching their fears. Take care not to hold me too tight. My eyes are sore with the view, and my teeth like to chatter. But it doesn't matter. Anyhow, my eyes are on you now. Grudge me in arms to stand alone. Take your hands and press them to my face, for my face is the only part that feels, and your hands are the only part I can see, 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 part I can see. There goes my arms tied together with knotted elbows. My organs form a line and they march off. There goes my arms tied together with knotted elbows. I can't make out, for my eyes are on you now. 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 Cradle me, cold and vulnerable, curled up tight. I have only my mind. Shiver bark lies across the floor as the years are stripped back. For my eyes are on you now. 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 2, 3, 4. Can't bring me down. Don't bring me down. 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 There's nothing left of me but the shadow you hold. Nothing left of me but the shadow, the shadow. Nothing left of me but the shadow you hold. Nothing left of me but the shadow, the shadow. The shadow, the shadow. The shadow, the shadow. The shadow, the shadow. Woo! Party, oh my God! Woo! I will be my own audience for now. Thank you so much. I want to say a huge thanks to St Martin's-in-the-Fields for everything they do with homelessness around the UK. It's incredible, and I support you guys so much. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for inviting me on the show. I hope you guys have had a good show so far, and you will continue to have a good show too.
Thank you, Millie. And Millie's new homemade lockdown EP, I'll never work for Six Music, called Dream On, is out on Tuesday. Well, we're nearly at the end of our show this evening, but I want to just tell you about the work of one of the vicars at St Martin's, the Revd Richard Carter. With our doors closed, the work continues for Richard and his team at the Sunday International Group. They found rooms, food and phones for those parishioners who've been rough sleeping prior to the COVID-19 outbreak. Richard and his group are also running an emergency takeaway lunch service from the steps of the vestry each Sunday. This week they saw over 100 familiar and new faces alike. Please donate as much as you can to help those who are alone, desperately hungry and living in the area around the church right now.
Smiling through, just as you
I hope you've enjoyed this concert of music, conversation and performance. St Martin's is a very special place. It combines a working church in the heart of the city with an internationally regarded programme of music and caring work to support homeless and vulnerable people get back on their feet. Please do give whatever you can this evening to help St Martin's keep the doors open. And we look forward to the time when we can open those doors to you again. Thank you.